So, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the third in our series of Breaking the Chain, Facing and Navigating Trauma with Coach Ibtihal. Today, we're going to be continuing where we left off last time. So, I'm going to hand it over to you and really excited to hear what we're going to learn today.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I pray that everyone is having a good mental health and that, sorry, I have to press okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope everyone is having a good mental health. Inshallah, today, this is our third and final meeting about breaking the chain, navigating trauma and facing trauma and navigating trauma. Well, last time we've discussed different issues that children might face during their early stages of life that might result in trauma that will affect them for the rest of their lives. We spoke about the difference between having one traumatic event or a set of traumatic events. And the third one was being in a conditional or environment, in a traumatic environment or in a conditional trauma. That means that children facing the trauma day in and day out. We've also spoke about different types of behaviors that might cause children to be traumatized. As we said before, we're not touching a lot on the issues that are very obvious and that so many people talk about. For example, we're not talking about sexual abuse or extreme violence because these things, we all know that these things shouldn't happen, and we all know that these things actually would cause a trauma. But we're focusing about on other things. Last time we spoke about the neglect, we spoke about the abandonment, we spoke about other issues that also kind of many people know about, but we needed also to emphasize more. Today, we're going to talk about more subtle things. They might result sometimes in traumatic effects when they are very extreme. These subtle things that we're talking about today, they're in everyday life. But these issues, these behaviors that we do with our children, they're in everyday life. It just is kind of a continuum that if you do too much of it or too little of it, it will result in a bad effect or a negative effects on children. But as long as you're in the middle, that you're doing a good job. This is what the children actually need. For example, let's talk about sharing versus not sharing with children about things that are going on our daily lives. Now, children, especially in younger ages, like toddlers and older, even 7 and 8, etc., these children see the world from their own perspective. The whole universe is revolved around themselves, not because they're selfish, it's just because they don't understand that there are different perspectives in the world and there are other things going on around them that does not involve them. They think everything that is going around in their environment has to do somehow with them. So if something bad happens, they always think that they're the ones behind this bad thing. So sometimes the children would see certain behaviors from their parents or their caregivers or the people around them, relatives or family members, and they would think that they're the ones who caused these issues. So if mommy is crying or dad is angry or somebody is shouting, they will always think that maybe I've done something bad. Maybe I'm being a bad boy or a bad girl, and that's why mommy is upset or daddy is doing this or something like that. So not share, and this is something might happen every day in our life. You're coming home tired, you're having a bad day. Sometimes one of the parents is going through depression or going through a tough time at work. No one can help it. It's just something normal. You cannot be smiley all the time. It's just we have to be sure how to be present with our children and to look appropriately at each age what is their needs, and how can we share with them without upsetting them, and what should we and how to talk to them. So we have a continuum, and it's like an extreme in that continuum. There's the extreme where parents never tell the children anything that is going on. They talk about life like there is something, nothing happened. Sometimes major things would happen, something, a disruption, a huge disruption that happened in their lives, but nobody talks about it, and nobody even checks with a child if they're scared or something happening to them or not, or how they're feeling about what just happened. They don't talk about that. They don't discuss that. They just pass the day as if nothing happened. And there's the oversharing, which is when the parents say everything to the children. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about that. Children, as we've said in our last session, that their nervous system is shaped during their connections with their parents and their caregivers. And the nervous system is shaped through the emotions, the connection, the physical connections, and they also shaped through the everyday life and the way that we deal with things around our children. We cannot help having negative things in our lives, but we can show our children how to behave or how to have a good attitude towards these things or how to deal with these things in a more calm way. And if for some reason things got out of control, we need to sit down with the children and let them understand. Children start picking up from their parents at a very, very early age. There was an experience that psychologists have done. They brought children and a child and baby, was still a baby, and a mother. And they put a special kind of camera that can actually show frame by frame, by microsecond, not just by second, but microsecond, like frame by frame, the behavior of the mother and the children. And amazingly, the baby was mimicking the mom's expression, just like a mirror. Mommy smiles, the baby smiles. Mommy moves her mouth, the baby moves his mouth or her mouth. And mommy is happy and the baby was happy. For a split of a second, something, maybe a thought passed through the mom's mind, and she was just upset. Like she looked scared for a split of a second, and the baby picked that. Maybe the mother herself did not even feel that at that moment, or maybe the adults didn't pick on that, but the baby picked on that, and immediately the baby's face also for a split of the second was scared. We're not saying that this much of behavior or that much of engaging with the child would cause the child a trauma. We're just that the scientists were curious how much the baby actually picking up from adults. Now, as children grow up a little bit older, they start monitoring their parents and seeing their behavior, and they also kind of mimic the mood of their parents from time to another. So mommy's upset or daddy's upset, babies or now toddlers or older, they pick on that. They understand when their parents are not well. This lady once told me, she said that at a certain point of her life, she was passing through depression because of some marital issues with her husband at that time, that they're having really bad issues. And she was depressed at that time. She was having a lot of issues in her life. And then her son, I think she said maybe was 5 or 6 years old. She didn't notice that her son, she was sitting really depressed. She was like, imagine somebody who's depressed, like almost disconnected from the world around her, sitting in her living room, disconnected. The son is trying to get his mommy's attention. Mom is not engaged with the son as normally she would. She's not playing with him. She's not laughing in his face. She's not smiling. She's not talking to him back and forth. He's trying to get the mommy's attention, and he's trying to talk to her. Maybe when she like hears something that he's saying, she would look at him and say something like answering his question or something, very short answers, but not actually engaging. She was totally disconnected due to her depression. Luckily, the son is used to express his emotions, and suddenly the son burst into tears. And that was like kind of woke up the mother, because she was disconnected, and suddenly the son is is bursting into tears, and suddenly like she's almost waking up from a deep slumber or something. And she looked at him and was like, well, why are you crying? What happened? And he's like, you're angry at me. And she's like, no, what makes you think that? You're not talking to me. You're not playing with me. You're not, and I'm trying to talk to you, but you're angry at me. And I don't know why you're angry at me. And the boy was crying and weeping. And the mother, like, of course, her heart melted, and she like recognized what was going on, that she just realized at that moment that her son was actually trying to get her attention. She didn't realize that before, that he was trying to get engaging with her, and she didn't feel that at that moment. It just, when she just suddenly woke up at that single moment, she realized what was going on. She started connecting with the world around her. She started understanding what's going on. Luckily, that child is actually used, and that's what I told the mother, because you make your son used to express his emotions, but like he learned that throughout, because she used to talk to him all the time. But other children, if they're not used to express their emotions and they see this happening, they'll just, crumple from inside, but they may not be able, they won't even know how to tell mommy that I'm scared that you're angry at me, and I don't know what to do to fix it. I'm scared that there's something broken in our life, and I don't know how to fix it. They will not even be able to express that. And of course, maybe once upon a time this is happening, it's not going to be the end of the world. But if this is happened over and over again, and children all the time seeing things happening around them and not understanding what's going on, this might result on children not being able to express themselves, or like children getting disrupted really badly. Another story was, I've heard it from another psychologist, and she said, like, one of her clients, when she was a little girl, the father was having issues. The father was depressed, and I think maybe was alcoholic or something. And at one point of time, he drew a gun, and her mother, so scared for her daughter, told her, run and hide. So she ran out of the house. She hid in the backyard. And luckily, she all the time she's hiding, she was so scared, waiting to hear a gunshot. Nothing happened. Luckily, the mother managed to calm down the father. The problem is when the little girl went back home after everything was ended, after the father is calmed down, and luckily the father was convinced to go and seek help, and things ended up well. But the problem is no one sat with that child, asked her how she felt. No one hugged her. No one calmed her down. No one tried to explain to her what happened, and no one tried to explain to her that things are going to be okay now. You just acted. This was like the dynamics in their family, in many families actually, acting like nothing had happened. It's ended, and that's it. And khalas, just, everybody goes on with their lives like nothing happened. And not sharing and not explaining to children is very, very confusing to children, because you're leaving gaps, and the children with their imagination are going to fill up these gaps, whatever thoughts come to them, and they may not be the right thoughts. And when they fill these gaps with their imagination, it's actually registered in their minds, and it becomes eventually a memory. And they will grow up believing this as if it were the actual things that happen, the actual events that happen, that these filling the gap with nonsense, even when they grow up and they realize that logically these are nonsense, but they will not be able to disconnect from them. Now, the other extreme is by sharing too much. And there's another stories we hear about children getting traumatized because their parents actually get the children involved in every fight the parents have. The father will speak to the son or the daughter and tell her everything that her mother done to him, and the mother will speak to her and tell her everything that her father done to her, and kind of getting the children in the middle. And sometimes moms will confide with their daughters or sons, especially the oldest one, whether the girl or the boy, too much too much, meaning that maybe she's 6 or 7 and she has to parent her mom or parent her dad. She has actually to sit down and listen to her mom's talking about what her dad done to her or what's happening to her or all how she's feeling or whatever in too many details. That's not good for children to hear at that age. It's not the kids' job to parent their parents. They need to know enough information to understand what is going on around them, to make sense of life, to make sense of events that are going on in their family, but they don't need to be burdened too much. Same thing goes for financial issues. We need to teach our children responsibility. We need to teach them that that the family may be struggling to provide for the children, enough for them to take responsibility, but not too much for them to make them worried all the time. Oh my God, my parents are going to get broke. Maybe we're going to be homeless. Maybe this bad thing would happen to us. Maybe that thing would happen to us, because that would maybe make the children scared for the rest of their lives about financial issues. This is not good parenting. It's not good that you hide everything to the point that you're spoiling your children, buy them everything above your ability to give them. So maybe you're struggling financially, but you still insist that children wear like brand names or doing this or doing that or spending that much money, and children will never learn responsibility. And that's also will reflect badly on the parents' financials and the family's financials. But also, it's not good idea to tell the children, oh, we're going to be broke, oh, something bad is going to happen to us, and talking about financial issues as if tomorrow everyone is gonna, be in the street. That's also not good to make the children worry about financial issues. It's just enough for make them understand. So don't tell them the problem alone. Tell them the problem with the solution. Simplify the problem according to the kid's age. So, for example, say the father is out of job. Okay, we can explain this to the children in a nice way, not to make them too scared. Daddy now doesn't have a job, so we don't have the same income as before. We're going to be all right because we're going to have a plan to continue to have a good life, but maybe we need to cut down in a few things that we're used to in order to be able to continue without being, upset or without missing the important things in our life. Simple way. Make the children understand that they have responsibility in the family in order for them to understand why they're not getting this or why they're not getting that, without feeling that this is their issue, that they're doing this, that maybe they upset their parents, that why they're no longer taking them out or doing this or doing that, and find alternatives. Okay, we're not going to do this time, we're going to do that, but eventually we'll be able to come back to this. Make it simple for the children without scaring the children. So too much sharing, not sharing at all, between being too confused and being too burdened. We need to have a middle way in between these two things. I don't know if anybody has a question here, or shall I continue? Okay, if there are no questions, I'll continue. The other issue would be oh, sorry, somebody have their hands up.
Yeah.
Yes, Ebtihal, I have a quick question, if it's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Regarding this, I think my daughter was exposed. We have some difficulties and some problems with my husband, and she was involved in everything. She was in the middle, and it's been now she's 9 years old. Uh, she kind of get the sense like how things go, and she used to give her opinion on everything. So right now, what can I do? For some time, like we don't share anything, but she was used to all of this. How can I help her, or do you think that it will traumatize her in somehow?
Well, it depends what was shared and how it affected her. I cannot tell. I haven't seen her. Maybe if you have somebody that is involved with children, they can see her at your town. But from now on, you can stop sharing too much but also like just give her a small idea, but don't share too much. Like give her share according to her age without making her upset, because it's not that the parents are upset. No need for the children to be upset as well, and need to make the children scared about what's going on. So maybe you start making her feel more secure that things are gonna get better and things like that, and try to talk to her in a way that she needs to concentrate now on what are things that has to do with her, but without cutting her off at the same time. So you need to cut her off gradually. You're no longer speaking to her about all the details. Just give her in a nutshell something that will make her feel comfortable, not worried. So yes, okay, she hurts you and your husband having an argument. Then you talk to her, look, it's true that your dad and I had an argument today, but we're fixing things now, and things are going to be better, inshallah. And you don't need to worry about this. We're trying to get things. We're working on these things, So I say something that she'll make her understand that there is an issue, that you're working on the issue. There is a way to fix the issue, but she doesn't need to know all the details about the issues, and she's too young to be involved in solving adults' issues. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes.
So let's move on with another issue also, which is taking responsibility in the family. The middle way is it's a very good practice for children to have chores. It's very good practice for children to take responsibility in doing certain things in the family, helping around the house, taking charge of what they do for themselves. Depending on their age, they can start doing that according to their age. Little by little, they learn from as toddlers to put their things away, to put their toys away. They learn a little by little how to be independent and dressing themselves up and so forth. And as they grow up, they can learn how to, maybe when they're older, they can maybe clean up their room, or help mommy cleaning up, or help daddy doing this, or help dad, sitting up the table, small things according to their age. What is the problem is two extremes. One extreme, children never have any responsibilities whatsoever, learning to be disrespectful to the parents, throwing everything at the mom, asking their mom for everything, not doing anything, and they're big and tall and everything, and they cannot do anything to themselves. They lack skills that they need in their lives. This may not traumatize them, but it will make them with no skills. They'll have no skills to face life. So when it will be harder for them to be independent. They don't know how to fix things for themselves. So doing things, taking responsibility, teach the children responsibility, and teach the children skills. Now, the other extreme is burdening the children with too much responsibility, to the point that the children having to parent each other, or having, sometimes it's mostly the older child that is burdened, and sometimes it's the older daughter that is burdened with everything. That means, at home, the older daughter sometimes is the one burdened with everything, and outside the house, for whatever reason, the boys are also, the older boy might be burdened with everything. That's I'm saying this out of how many things that you can see in life, but it could be also other children in the house are burdened, but this is mostly. And what happens in that case, that maybe she's 6, maybe she's 7, and she's supposed to do the laundry to everyone in the family. She's supposed to clean up after everyone in the family, and she's supposed to feed up the family. She's supposed to feed up her younger siblings, and maybe she's 9 or 10, and she's supposed to take care of an infant on her own. And this is just too much responsibility for a little girl or little boy to deal with. You shouldn't burden the children to these responsibilities, because it's not the child at the age that should take care of another child or of another parent. Sometimes parents who are under the abusing substances, under the influence of alcohol or drugs or something, they ask their children to take care of them. They need their children to clean up after them or do things for them. And sometimes one of the parents might be totally dependent because of either physical or mental illness. And the other parent will just cannot take it, so they throw everything on top of the children, and having one or two of the children taking care of the household and taking care of that sick parent. This is just too much for a child. Children need to have time to be children. Yes, they can take responsibility. Yes, they can help. We're not saying a child with a sick parent will not help or attend to their parents. Of course, they should attend to their parents. That teaches them responsibility, but shouldn't be the sole responsible or the primary caregiver of the parent, because they're still children and they need to be taken care of. So, and what happens when the child takes so much responsibility at this age, too much responsibility to the point that they might be scolded, they might be punished for not doing everything. Like imagine 6 or 7 or 8-year-old, she's supposed to do everything in her household. And if she didn't do it everything perfectly, she would be punished or be, frowned at or like blamed because her brother ran to the street, or her younger sibling has a wet diaper, or it's just too much for a child, or somebody's laundry is not done. It's just too much of the child. Children at this age, they start to learn responsibility by taking care of themselves and helping others, not by being the primary caregivers of everyone in the family or even any other person in the family. Not the primary caregiver. Helper, yes, but not primary caregiver. So we need to balance between these two extremes. Any questions, or shall I continue?
I have a question about the concept of teenagers, because it feels like it's a different concept in the West, and I'm not sure, if that's just an overgeneralization, but I remember hearing one of the scholars saying it was sort of an idea created by Hollywood, where it's like you've got kids who are old enough to work and have money, but they don't really have responsibility at home, this idea of being free. And so in Islam, what's the concept of like being baligh, like being, responsible in Sharia, but not quite the adult yet? Like, what's that balance?
It's just similar to what we said now. I cannot speak like from a fiqh point of view because I'm not a faqih myself, but from my understanding, there is la darar wa la darar. There is no bringing harm to someone and not harming oneself. So what the child or someone who's not capable of taking care of themselves need to do is to do whatever in their power to do without being overburdened. So being free of responsibility is bad. Being burdened by responsibility is bad. I expect from a teenager to be able to take care of themselves at home, but I don't expect them to be able to take charge or replace one of the parents. You see the difference between helping their parents around the house, or helping even their parents if they can work during summertime or something to earn their pocket money. Maybe if they manage to earn more to contribute to the family, if there's like an issue, like somebody, like the family having financial struggles or something, maybe they can do something to help the family. But for asking someone who's still not quite an adult to be the sole caregiver of the family, the sole breadwinner of the family, that's just not fair for the child. And it's just a huge difference between caring for myself, for my needs, and caring for the entire family. A 15-year-old shouldn't be caring for entire family in our day today. Maybe, I don't know, 500 years ago, 15 years old, already getting married and having their own children. Yeah, but today is different. We live in a different era. Children still not mature at that age. I'm not expecting a 15-year-old to drop out of school and get married and have children. We're expecting them to stay in a school in order to be able to benefit themselves, their families, and their community. In order to be able to stay in a school, somebody has to provide for them, but not to the point that they're spoiled. But so they need to take care of themselves, meaning that a 15-year-old should be able to do her own laundry or his own laundry, but they're not expected to do everybody else in the family. They should be able to clean up their room, helping around the mother, cooking, and sometimes, or doing this or doing that, taking turn in the family to take on responsibilities, but not to be the sole caregiver of the entire family. That's the difference. Does that answer? Does make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
So another issue we can move on to is in the continuum of praising versus criticizing children. We have two extremes, people who praise the children too much. That's actually start to be considered, today psychologists considered exaggeration in praise to be a type of an abuse, actually, because it actually confuses the children and makes them unable to learn and makes them not understanding reality. And there is also the other extreme is belittling the children or criticizing them in a way that make them like lose self-confidence or shaking their confidence or belittling them, or it's like it's not constructive criticism, it's actually destructive to them. And in between, we need to understand to distinguish between talking the child as a person, valuing a child as a person, as a human being, and evaluating their behavior and their attitudes. We need to distinguish between these two things. Behavior and attitude could be looked at as good and bad, but not the child themselves. So the child, we should look at our children as good little people, and we should look at them with love and respect. And it's good to teach our children that if you respect your child, you teach your child a value, that they value themselves, and they also understand that they should also respect others, because it's give and take. Because if your children respecting others but nobody's respecting them, then you teach your child to be to accept to be belittled and humiliated all the time. But no, I teach my child by respecting them how to respect others as well. Respecting them doesn't mean I put my child above his elders or somebody else, but meaning that I understand that my child is a human being with all the rights that I owe it to my child. I treat them with respect, meaning that I don't belittle them. I don't hurt their feelings. I respect their feelings. I respect their intellect. I respect their like not saying bad words to the children and describe them in a bad way that makes them feel that they're bad people. They're not bad people, they're good people with sometimes bad behavior. I should distinguish between evaluating the behavior as good and bad and evaluating my children as good and bad. So the praising too much, say you tell your children that they're better than everyone else. You're teaching them to be arrogant, and you're confusing them, because they're going to go on the world thinking that truly they're better than everyone else around them. And they will never learn from anyone because they think they're too good for anyone to teach them. If my child does something good and I tell them that whatever they've done is like has no match, and there is no one is better than them, and maybe their painting is better than Michelangelo or something like that, or their poetry is better than the best poet in the world, and things like that. Well, I should tell them they have beautiful painting, and I should also point out to the good things in their painting. But if I tell them that they're better than anyone, and someone's trying to teach them art in their school, they will not listen to their art teacher because they think they're better than his art or her art teacher. They're better than them because they didn't understand what I'm doing. They don't know what I'm doing. I'm better than even Michelangelo. They believe what their parents are telling them. So they will think, okay, nobody understands me. I'm good. I'm too good for them. And they will shut their mind from learning from others because they think they're too good to learn from anyone else. And if I'm teaching my children to be arrogant, to be pompous, to be, all these things, then I'm bringing to the world somebody with huge vanity, with huge, and this is because the issue here, that the kind of abuse also is that from inside they will feel empty, because even though outwardly they're believing that, and that becomes like a wall between them and learning to be a better person, it's also inside them they feel empty because they don't have enough knowledge, as their parents telling them that they know it all. They don't know it all. So somewhere inside them, that hinders them. And I remember there was like a family that has this issue with their children. And one time because they like to have their image in front of people. Sometimes it's image seeking is what makes parents do this. And one time the child failed some of his classes. And instead of the parents enrolling the child on summer school, so he can, pass the whatever classes that he couldn't pass throughout the year and get better, they decided to tell everyone in the world that their child is an A student and that he passed all his classes and he's an A-star student, etc. Child was confused, and he actually believed that. And in their mind, everyone is out there to get them because this is their right to be A students, to be the best of this, to be the best of that. And anyone who doesn't admit that to them, who does not acknowledge that they're the best, who doesn't acknowledge that they're A students, somebody is out there to get them, somebody who has a grudge against them, someone who doesn't love them, somebody who's trying to, so they don't understand that they did something wrong in life. They keep going on in life, doing bad things, thinking they're doing good things because they're so confused. And they never learn from their mistake. They never learn from other people. And they're always thinking that everyone out there hates them and everyone out there is jealous of them. And imagine that child had to repeat that year because his parents didn't want to admit that the child had a problem with one or two subjects that he could have easily passed in summer classes. Imagine that child's confusion next year when all his peers moved on to the next grade and he had to repeat the grade because his parents wouldn't send him to summer school. See how too much praising can bring children down than not raise them up. On the other hand, teasing children in a way that might actually make them feel awful about themselves, or belittling children, or calling them names, it's awful. It's actually, children believe what their parents say about them. So if you tell your child that they're liars, they'll believe that they're liars. If you tell the child they're not good for anything, they believe they're not good for anything. If you keep over and over telling your child that he's stupid or she's an idiot, they'll believe that and they'll start acting accordingly. And they will never feel that they're good for anything. You don't, if your child didn't do well in school, don't call them an idiot, don't call them stupid. Try to help them overcome this issue. No, never ever praise too much, never ever belittle your children. Sometimes teasing is awful. Teasing, a little bit of teasing is really good. It teaches children to be resilient. Too much teasing is really bad. It's hurt, it becomes like bullying the children. And there's a line between bullying your child and teaching them to be resilient. So you can tease children very little, and depending on how sensitive your child is, don't tease them to the point they're really upset. Tease them while they're laughing. If teasing makes them laugh, then they're happy, then they're going on with it, that's fine. If it makes them upset, then that's now starting to become a bullying, not teasing. So make it humorous, make it nice, but don't make fun of them. Make fun with them, not of them.
Could you excuse me, could you give us
Go
an
ahead.
example? Can you give us an example of a good teasing? Maybe sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm just thinking
That's
about
fine.
that.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Example of good teasing. Say a child did something clumsy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And instead of they broke something, for example, they're trying to do something and did it wrong and did it in a clumsy way. You can tease them by making fun of what happened, but not because you're not yelling at them for what they've done. You're not being upset. You're taking it in a humorous way and making it into making it in a funny joke. And you're kidding with them rather than yelling at them. And it becomes like a teasing thing. Oh, okay, you did this instead of doing that, or, something like that, So it's funny. And the kid would laugh because his daddy or mom is not upset that I broke the glass or I've done this or I've done that. Like in a subtle way, but not too much teasing to the point that you're calling them bad names and you keep bringing this up and you keep saying this in front of other people in a way that makes them feel terrible about themselves. Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Yeah, it kind of like releases some stress around an event that everyone can laugh at.
Yes.
Just because, yeah, my youngest daughter, when she was about 9, she asked me, Mom, you're always so like kind of like, I wasn't really mad and I was just kind of nice to them. And she said, Can't you be sarcastic with me? She asked me,
Yeah.
I can do sarcasm. I know how to do that. She goes, Why don't you? And she wanted me to be like really sarcastic with her.
Yeah, children love sarcasm.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. She's the last one and she's the only one that told me that. So yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, they love sarcasm. I mean,
Yeah.
so many issues could be solved with children through humors,
Mhm.
especially teenagers.
Yeah.
And even from ages of 10 and above, and instead of your teenagers doing something really terrible or stupid, instead of being mad at them, instead of that, just make fun of it. They'll
Mhm.
laugh, you will laugh. They'll feel like, okay, I'm not too bad,
Yeah.
you know. So, things like that, and instead of making it a big issue, I mean, laughter can solve lots of issues.
Exactly. Okay. Thanks.
I think there was one more thing I wanted to say. Let me see if I remember it. And because also not teasing at all, children do not become resilient. They become rigid, and the word cannot, like a person cannot go through the word being too rigid. They need a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of resilience. That will help them like move smoothly throughout the world. I think there was one more thing I wanted to say about not too much, not too little. It's hard to remember it. Anyways, what I wanted to say that all these things, even little all these things teaches us that throughout our lives with our children, we need to be in the middle way, not too much of anything, not too little of anything, just to find the balanced way in order to avoid different abuses. Sometimes not every abuse actually would turn into a traumatic event, but sometimes it could be. It depends on the child's sensitivity. It depends on how much it hurt the child. It depends on the event itself or the behavior itself. It also depends on how many times it happened and when it happens and how was the child during the time. So it's very important that we talk to our children, to befriend our children. It's very important to discuss our emotions, and it's very important that we talk to help our children learn how to express their feelings, not to keep it inside. It's really, really the most important thing. If you can find books, if you can find anything that teaches you or helps you teach your children different types of emotions and how to express these emotions and how to deal with these emotions. And the best teacher of all for children is the practical thing that they see you doing every day of your life, and not just one thing they hear or one book they read. It's basically what is the situation at home? The situation at home, what happens when something bad happened to us? How do we deal with that? What happens when something disrupts our peace? How can we overcome that? What happens when a disaster is happening? How are we how are we reacting to that? The children start learning from their parents, and these reactions help the children build a way in their, not just, both physically and emotionally, in their nervous system, inside them, and also like when they grow up and they go and face the world and they pass through different problems in the world, they react to it the way they learned how to react to it since childhood. Parents who are always tense, who are always getting angry at everything or panic from any little things that's happening in life, or don't know how to deal with disruptions that happen in life and cannot control the distress. Parents who scream all the time or get upset all the time, or parents who keep to themselves all the time and never speak a word, never express an emotion, never deal with issues, never face issues, always trying to hide things under the rug, and we're fine and we're perfect and everything is beautiful and everything is nice. These both parents, both extreme at the different ends of the continuum, are not raising children who can actually face the world and deal with the world's with the issues that the world throws at them as they grow up, because they didn't learn how to deal with issues calmly and nicely. It's okay that we're all human beings. It's okay, sometimes we'll lose it, but it shouldn't be the rule, it should be the exception. And after that, we need to come down and we need to talk to our children. It's okay, sometimes we'll withdraw from the world because we're human beings. Sometimes things happening to us, we'll withdraw, but we need to come back and talk to our children about it. We need to understand each child's stage of life, what is suitable. We need to pick the words that are suitable for our children according to their ages, in order to convey to them and explain to them what is going on in their lives and our lives and their lives. It's very important to pay attention to our children's attitude, to our children's emotions, to our children's the way they express themselves. And one last advice: try as a family to have at least minimum one meal a day as a family, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Every single day, the family gathers together to eat one meal together. No excuses, at least one meal together. If you can do all 3 meals together, if you can do many activities together with your children, that's the most important thing. If you can't, due to whatever things that are going on in our lives, whether they have to go to work, children have to be in school, etc., try as much as possible. The entire family gathers every single day, at least once over one meal. The children need that. According to studies and research, gathering over one meal per day to the entire family, as long as it's constructive gathering, not gathering while everyone having their mobiles or their cell phones, busy on their tablets or iPads or whatever, and no one is looking at the other and no one is talking to the other. Not gathering while everyone's shouting at each other and making that time is a torture for everyone. No, gathering with full attention, gathering with love. And even if sometimes disruption happens, it's fine. That's how family dynamics is. Gathering together, eating a meal together, according to research and studies, this is actually protect the children from so many awful things, protect their children from deviations from has to do with sexual behavior, with drugs and alcohol, with all these vices that we're all scared for our children that they might fall into. Gathering as a family together is a big step in giving the children that protection, because children know they're coming to the table. They're going to sit with you. You'll talk to them. You will notice your children. If you don't see your children every day, you're in the same house, but everyone locking themselves up in a different room, or everybody is too busy. And even when they gather in the living room, everyone is so busy looking into their machine devices or whatever. No one is paying attention to the other person. No one is talking to the other person. Then there is a huge gap in the family that when something bad happened to one person in that family, they're already disconnected. They wouldn't notice it until it's too late. But if the family gathers with full attention to one another, talking to one another, relating stories to one another, learning what happens to each other during their day when they're not put together, understanding what is going on with their lives, then every single person in this family will feel supported, will feel that they can talk about, they have a place to go to talk about their issues. Parents will understand things about the children they wouldn't understand it otherwise. Parents will be able to communicate to their children and will be able to notice if there are any changes in their children on time in order to step in and intervene and rescue their children before it's too late. But if you don't see your children, if you don't sit with your children, if you talk to your children day in and day out, by the time you realize there's something wrong with their children happening, it might be too late. I want to end this session by saying what is in the bullet of the session when I said judgment versus awareness. What I meant by that is, whether it's myself or many other people, mental health providers that talk on social media or write books, or they also come on TV shows or programs or whatever, trying to raise awareness about mental health and trying to teach people about mental health. The aspect behind that is, just I said, awareness. That means I learn that there's something bad or something might be abusive, or something might cause issues to other people, that I would refrain from doing that. I learned that if I'm feeling something, I can deal with it. I learned that I should seek help if this and that happened to me or happened to somebody in my family. So it raises awareness. It help us pay attention to things around us. By no means anyone hears a mental health provider talking about mental health issues think that these things are actually should be used for every person in the world, to diagnose every person in the world. When you hear people talking about, when you hear mental health providers talking about certain issues, don't use their words in order to diagnose everyone. Just so many people, you hear them talking, so-and-so is narcissistic. How do you know it's narcissistic? Because she heard somebody in a mental health program or something saying that person, this is narcissism. Maybe that person is selfish, but you cannot say that person is narcissistic in a clinical sense, unless if you were a clinician and you sat with that person and did the evaluation. You don't say that person has this issues or bipolar or this or depressed or this or that. If you're suspecting that someone around you or yourself having issues, go to somebody who's specialized in these issues, talk to them, and ask them to evaluate the situation and help you go throughout the situation. Don't go around the world judging and labeling people. That's one. Secondly, don't use this to point fingers or blame others. always you will hear, and if you go to a mental health provider or you go to consultant or psychiatrist or psychologist or coaches or whatever, sometimes they ask you about your childhood, or many times they will ask you about your childhood. They will ask about how your parents dealt with this issue or how their parents treated you. Maybe you learned this from listening to us about what I've just said today about and last time about things that could be considered abusive to children. Doesn't mean you think that we're saying these things in order for us to start blaming our parents or pointing fingers at this person. They're the reason I've done this. They're the reason I've done that. And the idea of blame has two bad issues. One, that sometimes people find it as an excuse to justify whatever bad behavior they're doing, because my parents were abusive, so today I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Even if your parents were abusive, you have free will, and you can, if you think that you've been through abuse, seek help. And if you think that your behavior is due to trauma that you've been through, seek help. Get out of it. Don't do something awful or hurt other people or hurt yourself and blame it on your parents. That's one. Two, when you go and see your psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist or whoever mental health provider, and they're asking you about your parents, it's not because they want to shame your parents. It's not because they want to point fingers at your parents. It's just they need to understand how your childhood was, because that helped them understand where you come from and what is your perspective on your world. And it's also helped them to understand where things went wrong and how can they help you to get over that. It's not the intention to point fingers. It's not the intention to accuse. It's not the intention to shame anyone. Don't get too defensive when your mental health provider asks about your childhood. Try to open up. Try to tell them what is going on, how your parents dealt with you in certain issues. And it's okay. They don't mean by that, or we don't mean by asking you about that to say that you had bad parents. Not at all. And also the third thing is, when you hear us saying this might be abusive or something, we don't mean for you to walk on eggshells around your children. It's not meant for you to be too scared day in and day out. Maybe I've done something wrong. Maybe I've done something bad. Oh, I cannot raise children, or people would go crazy and okay, I'm not going to have any children because it's just too hard to raise children. I'm going to mess it up. That's not the intention of that. The intention of that is to help us learn, because none of us was born with a manual that tell our parents, or none of our children were born with a manual that tell us what is good for them, what is bad for them. We use common sense. We will use whatever knowledge that people arrive at, or professionals arrive at, to help us raise our children. And it's just going to be trial and error in every generation. Even psychologists themselves, sometimes they come up and say, this is good for your children. And then the next generation will say, oh, no, you know what? It turned out that wasn't so good. Let's change that. So no one is going to get it right 100%. The most important things, relax, take a deep breath, do whatever you can with love, with compassion. Even if you messed up, you can get over that. And your children are going to be able to get over that. Just be aware of the things that are obvious, and be aware of the things that might hurt your children. If you're practicing them, stop. If you haven't practiced them, don't do them. And just understand, try to understand. They're just little people around us, and try to be kind. If you're confused, you don't know what's the right thing to do, the kind thing is always the right thing to do. The thing that you do with compassion is the right thing to do in all situations. You will never go wrong if you're kind and compassionate. That's the main rule. Everything else could go either way. So hope this was useful for you. And I'm sorry if I've done anything wrong in this. Please forgive me. And I hope you've enjoyed it and you've learned a little bit from it. And please let me know if you have any more questions today. Thank you so much for being so patient with me. And thank you, Safiyya. And thank you for the sisters in California for organizing things and inviting me.
Jazakallah khair for this beautiful information and opportunity to reflect and improve. It's wonderful. Yeah, I'm wondering if any of the participants have any questions. I like how you said the kind thing is the right thing, and we can always be kind and then go back later and try to figure out how to communicate something that might be bothering us. But we're human, so that gets hard sometimes. Yeah. Is there any questions? We have a good opportunity here. It's a lot of great information that you shared today, and most of it revolved around for me, like balance between like praising and criticizing, or oversharing or undersharing. So it's still like that's our deen anyways, to be that middle
Yes.
path. So I appreciate
Yes,
that.
the middle
Yeah.
path. It is the middle path, actually.
I noticed in my mother's generation, as she's an American, and their parents were of that generation, kind of Leave It to Beaver 1950s. So like anything that happened inside the family has to be a complete secret. There's no sharing. Their reputation means everything. So like if there was any problem in the family, it absolutely could not be shared outside, to the detriment of the family health. And then I sort of saw that too in some of our Muslim communities, where there's an emphasis on you never tell anything to anybody outside. So what would be your advice for, like, let's say if there's a young adult in a family, or even a wife or a husband that wants to get counseling or wants to seek medical help, but there's a strong stigma against talking about things?
It's still the same thing in here as well, like in many societies today. It's not just the 1950s, it's still the same thing. There is a big stigma about sharing about family issues. It's true that we don't talk to everyone in the world about our family issues. That's fine. But there are certain people that you need to talk to when you need help. It's not just, it's not, again, it's not about shaming your family or revealing their secrets. First of all, any mental health provider, they have a code of ethics. The most important thing about this code of ethics, that your privacy should be protected. No mental health provider is allowed by that code of ethics, by law, to discuss your privacy with anyone else. So wherever you go, to tell the mental health provider, with your counselor, your therapist, whoever they are, your coach, anyone, you tell them something, they would never reveal it to the outside world. And if they ever revealed it to anyone else, you can easily sue them or get their license canceled or something. They're going to get in great trouble. So wherever you tell your mental provider, it will always be private. It will be always secret, and it will be always just between you two. And if they will ever consult with anyone else, it has to be with another mental provider also, like their advisors or something. But it still will be anonymous, But no one would know your family secrets if you go to a mental health provider. It will still remain a secret. Now, when there is abuse in the family, and I'm talking about the terrible kind of abuse, like the extreme abuse, like violent, or talking about violent or sexual assault in the family, within the family. In that case, you need not only to involve a mental provider, but also you need to involve, the authorities, because this is a crime, and we shouldn't cover up for crimes. Because when you cover up for crime, the crime continues, and when the crime continues, that's just terrible, and it will never end, and it will keep repeating, and it's not just going to hurt one person, but it will continue to hurt other people as well. It's enabling criminals to continue to be criminals. But other than that, the rest of whatever family issues, you can go to your mental provider, and you rest assured it's going to remain private. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
I believe somebody has a
I
question.
think it's
Jeanette?
Janet. Yeah, Sister Sumaya.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you, Janet?
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, Coach Ebtihal, Jazakallah khair, Sumaya. It's always so nice to be here with you. MashaAllah. So, my question is, when you're talking about kindness, so when you're striving to be kind, but the people around you are not kind, and then you still want to be kind, there is a point that sometimes you just don't want to be kind anymore because if you're receiving rudeness. How do you deal with that? How can you still be kind when people are not kind to you?
You can do that by drawing boundaries so you don't get hurt. You make boundaries between you and anyone who's rude with you. And don't allow the rudeness to continue. You don't need to shout. You don't need to do anything. Sit down when things are calm, in a calm way. And, listen, these are my boundaries. I will not accept this. I will not accept that. And it's better that we talk in a respectful and continue to respect you, and will expect respect from your side as well. You don't need to be rude or awful or a bad person, or don't level with the rudeness. You don't accept the rudeness, but you don't have to level with it. So that's how you do it. You need to draw boundaries. Once you draw the boundaries, you stop the hurt toward yourself. It will be much easier for you to go back to kindness.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. It's a good question. Thank you. We have this rule, as لا ضرر ولا ضرار, no harm to be practiced against others, and no harm to be against oneself as well. So being kind doesn't mean I accept people to harm me, or that I do harm to myself. Do no harm to others, do no harm to oneself, accept no harm toward yourself or toward others.
That reminds me of something I read in a book. It said, it was in a marriage, like a relationship book, and it said, if somebody's speaking really rough to you, you can just remain very calm and then get up, say, ouch, and then just calmly leave the room. I'm not sure what you think about that, but it communicates like, I'm hurt, that hurt, and also I'm not staying here to accept any more of that. But I'm just curious what your thoughts on that advice is.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Or you can also communicate it loudly, not rudely, but I don't like this. I'm not accepting this. You say it. I mean, not everyone will understand it depends on the situation, depends on the relationship. It depends on the person that you're dealing with. Maybe they'll understand it when you leave them and go. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe you'll think that you just withdraw because you're don't want to be engaged anymore on the conversation, or maybe they didn't even pay attention, that they didn't think of themselves that they did something wrong, or they're being rude. Maybe they think they're being realistic. That's what some people think.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand the line between being realistic and being rude. A lot of people don't understand the difference between saying the truth as it is and being, rude and harmful to others. So for these people, sometimes withdrawing would make a stand. Sometimes you have to take the stand. You have to say, you know what, you want to discuss this? Let's discuss it when you're more calm and you can say it and you can express your feelings or your ideas in a more respectful way. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to you talking to me like that and accusing me of these things or speaking to me in that tone. And then you leave. So that could be one way to do it. When do you do this? When you do that? You're the person who knows that the person that you're talking with best. You're the one who knows how to set the boundaries, because you understand the other person better than anyone outside, especially when it comes to marriage. Nobody knows the husband more than the wife, and nobody knows the wife more than the husband. Like the way you deal with each other, the dynamics of the marriage, the dynamics of the relationship. The only two of you understand these dynamics, and you after many years, you've tried 100 things, so you understand exactly what works, what doesn't work. So you start doing the things that work in a nice way. So I don't have to do something bad against something bad is done to me, because two wrongs would not make them right. But I can take a stand and draw the line and make boundaries, and make it the boundaries not only for one time, but make the boundaries as a rule in the relationship. And it's a huge difference that every time we have a discussion, I'll have to set the boundaries again. That doesn't work, because you're going to get tired. You need to sit down at time that everyone is calm. Look, it's inevitable that at one point in our lives, we're going to have arguments, we're going to have disagreements. Let's put rules on how to have the arguments. Let's regularize, like put the boundaries for our disagreements. When I'm angry and you're angry, I'm gonna expect from you this and that, and he'll tell you, I'm expecting from you this and that. I will not accept this, and he says, I will not accept this. Come down, put on all the rules, how to deal with issues, how to argue. It's not enough that when you build your life, you learn how to do things together there when you're happy, how to be happy together, but you need to put rules of how to be in disagreement together, how to deal with issues that arises together. Maybe you'll come to the understanding that if I'm angry, you come down, and if you're angry, I'll come down, things like that. But also make sure to draw many boundaries. Anything that you feel that you cannot accept, put that in the agreement. Let's agree not to call each other names. So let's agree not to use bad language when we're upset. Let's agree not to scream and shout. Let's agree to talk in a better way. Let's agree if someone lost it and shouted, the other one will not shout more, rather will point it out in a certain way. Maybe you can agree on a certain signal or something, or a certain word that one of you will tell the other when they're shouting, in order to get their attention. Then they're shouting now, because sometimes people just don't pay attention to that and start shouting, and okay, look, you start shouting. Or maybe you agree on a certain word or a certain signal or something that, okay, you start shouting, and I'm going to be upset about that. So you go down to lower your voice again. So put all these rules when you're calm, in order to be able to apply them when you're not calm. Because if you try to set the boundaries while you're both angry, nobody will respect these boundaries, because you're both angry. Set the boundaries when you're calm, so you can use it when you're angry.
That's great. I can foresee having a series on relationships in the near future, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Really interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you
And
for
thank
all
you for
this, and thank you for your
everyone.
presence and your time. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah
Thank you
khair.
so much. I've enjoyed it so much, and I hope it were beneficial for everyone who attended. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been really beneficial, and thank you all for attending. And there will, inshallah, be a recording in the future, right? Inshallah. So
Inshallah.
we're looking forward to that too.
Inshallah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Shukran, jazakallah khair.
وإياكم. السلام عليكم.
Wa alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum
السلام
salam wa
ورحمة الله.
rahmatullah. Ma salama.
مع السلامة.